What if I told you two people could retire with the exact same amount of money, take the exact same withdrawals every year, and yet one of them runs out of money decades earlier? It sounds crazy, but it happens. And the reason is something most people don't even think about: sequence of return risk. Now, if you're planning to retire early, like I am, or really retire at all, this is something you need to understand, because it could be the difference between a stress-free retirement and running out of money way sooner than you expected. So let's break it down. What is sequence of return risk? Alright, let's say you and I both retire with $1 million. We both plan to withdraw $40,000 a year following something like the 4% rule. Now let's imagine two different scenarios. In scenario A, the market is strong for the first 5 years with solid gains. Your portfolio grows even though you're withdrawing money. In scenario B, the market crashes right after you retire. You take out your $40,000, but now your portfolio is shrinking faster than you expected. Fast forward 20 years, and the person who retired into a bull market is still sitting on a healthy portfolio. The other? They're scrambling because their account has been drained much faster. This is sequence of return risk. It's not just about what returns you get, but when you get them. Why is this a big deal for retirees? If you're still working and the market crashes, sure, it's annoying, it's not pleasant to look at, but it's not devastating because you can keep investing, keep buying stocks at lower prices, and let things recover over time. But when you're retired and withdrawing money, it's a whole different ballgame. If you sell assets while they're down, you lock in those losses. And since your portfolio is now smaller, it has less ability to rebound when the market recovers. This is why retiring right before or during a downturn can be dangerous, because you don't get to just sit and wait it out like a 30-year-old with a steady paycheck can. Let's look at an example of how this plays out. Let's take Bob and Alice, two retirees with the exact same retirement plan. Both retire at 65 with $1 million. Both withdraw $40,000 per year for living expenses, and both average a 7% annual return over 30 years. But here's the twist. Bob retires during a bull market. His first 5 years are strong with positive returns. Alice, on the other hand, retires during a bear market. Her first 5 years are rough, with big losses early on. Even though they both get the same average return over 30 years, their actual outcomes are completely different. Bob's portfolio grows despite withdrawals because he got those strong returns early on. And Alice's portfolio shrinks faster because she had to withdraw money while her investments were down. The final result? Fast forward 20 to 25 years and Bob is still in great shape. His portfolio held up well and he's got a comfortable cushion. Alice, on the other hand, she's in trouble. Because she withdrew money from a shrinking portfolio early on, her investments never fully recovered. Even though the market eventually turned around, her lower balance meant she missed out on the full rebound. She runs out of money years earlier than Bob, despite having the exact same average return. This is the essence of sequence of return risk. It's not just about average returns, it's about when the good and bad years happen. Retiring right before a downturn can be devastating because your withdrawals lock in early losses. And if you don't plan for this, you could be forced back to work or forced into cutting expenses dramatically just to make your money last. That's why strategies like cash buffers and flexible withdrawals can be lifesavers in retirement. So what can you actually do about this? How can you protect your retirement? Well, here are a few solid strategies. 1, you can keep a cash or bond buffer. One of the simplest ways to reduce sequence of return risk is to not sell stocks during a downturn. Instead, keep 2 to 5 years of expenses in cash, short-term bonds, or money markets. That way, if the market drops, you can pull from your safe assets instead of selling stocks at a bad time. Some people use the bucket strategy, which is basically splitting money into short-term cash, medium-term bonds, and long-term stocks. 2, you could adjust your withdrawals. A flexible withdrawal strategy can make a huge difference. In good years, take out what you need or even a little extra, but in bad years, try to cut back spending or pull from your cash reserves instead. This is basically the opposite of what most people end up doing because they panic and sell stocks when they're down. But if you can ride out the storm, your portfolio has a much better shot at lasting. 3, you can use dividends and interest. Instead of selling shares, some retirees live off dividends and bond interest only, letting their actual investments stay intact. This works best if you have a dividend-heavy portfolio or so much invested that you can simply live off the dividends and interest, but it can provide some level of stability in bad markets. 4, you could consider annuities or other guaranteed income. Now, I'm not a huge fan of annuities for everyone, but some retirees like having that guaranteed income floor to cover their essentials. It helps them sleep at night. Because if you know your basic expenses are covered with Social Security, pensions, or an annuity, you don't have to stress as much when the market is down. Then your investments can be used more strategically rather than being forced to pull money out at the worst time. At the end of the day, sequence of return risk is one of the biggest dangers for retirees, but it's also one of the least talked about. I think one reason is that there's just a lot of luck involved here. You could be lucky to retire into a good market or very unlucky to retire at the worst possible time in a bear market or a market crash. Either way, it's not just about how much you save, but how you withdraw that money and when. If you're planning for retirement, early or otherwise, this is something you need to plan for. So let me know in the comments, how are you preparing for market downturns in retirement? Do you have a strategy in place? And if you want to dive deeper into early retirement strategies, you can check out this video here. Comment, like, subscribe, and thanks for watching.